Armored Corps or Storks. Just who is this group who transports armored corps to their battlefield, and even helped form one of the three powers during the time of Armored Corps Verdict Day? To answer this, I looked to the book Armored Corps 5, The After, where on page 54, information about the group can be found. The Storks are a group that specialized in infiltrating and exploring the deepest parts of heavily contaminated zones, areas that even the most renowned migrants avoided. They were also known as divers. Their primary occupation was rescuing stranded survivors. The group's name came from its leader, Edgar Stork, though in reality the organization consisted only of Stork himself and a handful of companions. Despite being called a group, the members of the Storks generally operated independently, gathering only when summoned for periodic meetings. All of its members originally came from the people known as Cendrillons, and their extraordinary abilities were made possible through the Cendrillon's crossing ability. There were strict rules for hiring the Storks. For example, if one wanted them to accompany an expedition into the deepest contaminated regions, money alone was not enough. The requester first had to be recognized as a person worthy of their trust. This was because the crossing ability could only function when there was complete mutual trust between those involved. For that reason, the Storks lent their abilities only to people they judged to be trustworthy, or accepted them as comrades. Having all been exposed to severe contamination, every member suffered from some form of physical disability, and each lived knowing they could die at any time. Ironically, it was precisely this condition that became the source of their seemingly supernatural physical abilities and heightened senses. Now that I've mentioned the name Cendrillon during this explanation a few times, and since the game does not address these people, nor how they are linked to the Stork group, I feel it's important for a better understanding on the Stork group and people's attitude towards them. The information I am about to give you comes from the same book as the Storks information, and the very same page. Cendrillon was the name given to wandering people who roam the harsh, contaminated zones, equipped with nothing more than crude gear, and who were despised even by migrants as outcasts. The term itself does not refer to any particular race or ethnic group. Rather, anyone who lived under the conditions I spoke about earlier came to be known as Cendrillon. It is believed they acquired the ability to judge the state of contamination through the sacrifice of countless lives. This technique became known as crossing. Crossing was never an exact science, but rather an instinct born from accumulated experience. By reading signs such as the movement of clouds or the direction of the wind, they could sense shifts in the contamination levels and continue their journey by threading their way through areas where the concentration of pollutants was comparatively low. For this reason, the leader of a Cendrillon group was called the Elder, the oldest and most experienced member of the band. Even so, crossing was nothing more than educated prediction. Unforeseen changes could occur, and their judgment could prove wrong. As a result, many Cendrillon perished along the way. Against all odds, however, the Cendrillon survived by continually moving from one barely habitable refuge to another within regions that should have been completely uninhabitable due to the contamination. One such group would later come under the leadership of a new guide named Francis. Under her direction, they crossed the sea and ultimately succeeded in reaching what is now known as the Far East. It should be said that the Cendrillon's way of life demanded absolute faith in the Elder's decisions. A single mistake in judgment could immediately result in the death of the entire group. This unquestioning obedience became one of the reasons outsiders regarded them as fanatical, or even insane. As a result, very few were willing to associate with the Cendrillon. An example of a Cendrillon many of you may know apart from Edgar Stork, or even RD, is Oswald of Warwickshire, from the Men of Honor in Armored Corps 5. His story is Elizabeth, Cordelia's mother, happened upon a young Cendrillon boy named Oswald of Warwickshire, who had collapsed from exhaustion and rescued him on a whim. Oswald remained under the protection of the Men of Honor, but because of his origins, he continued to be viewed with suspicion and treated as an outsider. In time, seeking to repay the kindness shown to him, he grew into an AC pilot serving the Men of Honor, and eventually became the bodyguard of Regan, Elizabeth's youngest daughter. So as you can see, Storks and Cendrillons are very much connected through history. I feel this also shines a light on why the Evergreen family faction had this religious style of command, as this way of life is what they know, and since it has done so well for them, they see no reason not to keep following it. Still, it is with this the report on Storks and Cendrillon comes to a close.